Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing a twin flame energy check-in. Before I get into the reading, I'm going to start with the channel announcements. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube. It's called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy check-ins related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. So as far as this reading is concerned, there are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the clear quartz point. Group 2 is this piece of copper. And group 3 is the Selenite wand. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead, which I do recommend using so that you can skip over me shuffling cards in between groups to clear the energy of the group I've just read for and tap into the energy of the group I'm about to read for. Unless you like listening to the sound of shuffling cards as some kind of ASMR for you, which feel free then to listen all the way through. So again, I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into the messages. Hi, Group 1. You chose the clear quartz point. So I'm going to start by taking a look at what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you and the connection right now, maybe other things that are on their mind that they are going through that want to come through in this section of the reading. So we've got the Two of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. The Ten of Pentacles in reverse, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. The Knight of Pentacles, so more earth energy. Six of Pentacles, earth energy again. Fork in the road, and new life. So, with this Ten of Pentacles in reverse, this can relate to some kind of financial instability that they might be going through right now, or this can talk about a lack mentality in general that may be causing them to not focus as much upon you in the connection as they had previously, or due to this kind of like financial strain or lack that they are experiencing at this point in time, it is making them feel inadequately equipped to bring forth something to you. It could be causing delays in any kind of plans that they had laid in place, a sense of wanting to give something, wanting to provide some kind of explanation, maybe, unblock communication between the two of you, start up lines of conversation again, deliver some kind of an apology that could start the ball rolling toward reconciliation. It feels like this has been something, the idea of turning the page in the situation has been on their mind for quite some time, but it almost feels like due to extenuating factors, those plans have had to be put on hold, or they may even just be right at the place of they've got all the ducks in the row. They know what needs to be said. They know what needs to be done. The clear path forward is apparent to them, but they're stopping short of action. They're almost like making the situation harder on themselves than it needs to be at this point in time, this indecision point. To reach out, is this going to make matters worse? Is it better to just remain silent, to keep feelings, stuffed down within? The sense of, are they ready for kind of like the long-term implications of what investing further in this connection may mean for them, what reconciliation could mean for them. There's an energy almost with this bear at the bottom here of the Knight of Pentacles that they are very intimidated by you energetically in some way. They may be focusing on differences between the two of you in terms of where you're at in your lives, maybe financially, maybe in terms of, career, things that you've accomplished. There's a sense of them really observing you also very kind of silently from the shadows with this gauzy kind of veil on her eyes, that as much as, communication might be at a minimum or completely closed off between the two of you, they are observing you in some way, and what you are seeing, it is very much drawing them towards you, but at the same time, it's bringing up a lot of fears and a lot of insecurities. Necessary conversations that need to take place, any kind of an apology that needs to happen, kind of cracking open the potential here and exploring what the two of you can build toward, what you can grow towards together. It's very enticing for them, and yet there's a sense of, am I ready for this? Am I ready to invest in this? Am I ready for what all comes with investing fully, in confessing feelings, in opening up, in, working in a reciprocal manner to nurture and protect this connection. This bear can also speak of a very protective energy, that while they are not necessarily at the point of feeling that they can bring something forth to you, being what you need and what you want, almost feeling that what they have to give is lacking, or that it can't meet some sort of standard, something that they are seeing about you in terms of changes and shifts that you've made, something that it's almost, they're focused a lot on sort of what's missing within themselves rather than placing a lot of value and importance on what they have to give to you. Any kind of truth-telling, time, patience, dedication, commitment, consistency, any number of things. Yet at the same time, it's like they're not, even if they're kind of leaning into this energy of that the time might not be right, not feeling that it's the stars are not completely aligned, or even if they are aligned, that there's something kind of like lacking within this person, within your twin flame. They're not necessarily ready to discard the connection altogether. They're still protecting it. They're still, keeping their cards very close to the chest, not really feeling in this energy quite yet. It's almost like a timid energy, very cautious, very, strategy kind of oriented, wanting to make sure that the next move they make is well thought out, well planned, that you can handle what comes along with that, that they can handle what comes along with that. Definitely somebody who is not wanting to add further chaos to the situation, further confusion than there may already be. And so they're at this kind of like decision point right now as far as what is in the best interest of everybody involved in this situation. To preserve the integrity, to keep intact these deep feelings that they have for you. With all this Pentacles energy here, these are true feelings. These are deep feelings. These are feelings that they treasure. It's something about this connection, even as they are holding you in some kind of like energetic space or distance. They're treasuring that nonetheless, and it's almost like they're not wanting to bring that up to the light of day and sort of expose it to potential scrutiny, to potential, meddling or involvement of other people, a sense that they may even be kind of pedestalizing you a little bit in this situation, what you've shared in the past. It's kind of an easier way, it almost feels, than dealing with some sort of lack within themselves or in their material world, is to just sort of lean instead into this energy of you're too good for them. Anything that they would have to bring forth, it's not good enough for you. And so, again, kind of like protecting this connection in a way from the energies of chaos, which in a way they're feeling is sort of, it comes with the package of whatever they have to give. There's not a certainty on their part if they will be able to, in a long-term sense, bring balance into the situation. And so kind of, again, this crossroads point of, just keep silent, have another go around of, searching within and making some kind of plans, more observation that may be necessary of you from afar, or take a chance, take a risk, bring something forth and see, if the two of you can kind of work with that, if you can work your way through any of these difficulties, any fears that have held them back in the past. A sense of, time and distance have not diminished these feelings as much as they've stuffed and bottled that down. They're unable to fully escape from that. And so wanting to create change in some manner, but just almost not being sure how to do that at this point in time. But a lot with this Pentacles energy, this is talking about conscious focus. This isn't just like passive thoughts. This isn't just, from the higher self level. This is the 3D person right here, is investing a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of research that is going on about you, maybe about soul connections for some of you, the concept of twin flames for others of you. With this idea though, with the 10 of Pentacles, it feels like for a lot of you, this person is really, they're unfamiliar with that term, or just the way that they are at in terms of their consciousness development. It's not necessarily something that they resonate with. The whole idea of spirituality is maybe a very materially focused person. They need empirical evidence, kind of matters of the heart, matters of the soul, matters of spirit. That's outside of their wheelhouse. That's outside of their area of expertise. Nevertheless, they keep being drawn. Their attention keeps being drawn back to you. They're investing a lot of thought and effort at this point in time and trying to find some answers, find out why. looking at anything that they have of you materially, like pictures, maybe old pictures, looking back over old sort of communications between the two of you, looking at your social media currently, and again, kind of recognizing value and worth within you, something that is exuding out this energy of confidence that's very intimidating for them. They're wanting to fix this situation, but not really being sure if who they are as a person and what they have to give at this point in time, if this can kind of match the vibration that you are at, if this is gonna, be an adequate kind of counterpart to whatever it is you're bringing to the table. So I'm going to take a look now at some of the fears, blocks, obstacles, and challenges that they are dealing with, that they're needing to work through, trying to work through, that relates to either the connection or even just in general in their life, beyond kind of this energy here of maybe some financial difficulties that could definitely be affecting their level of confidence and self-esteem. Okay, so we have power, fulfillment, and freedom. So with these lightning bolts here on this power card, this can definitely talk about like spiritual awakening, something that has been very activating about this connection. A lot of downloads, dreams, and visions that they have gotten, about you, maybe even like past life recollections, things that again are very much outside of this person's wheelhouse, with all of this Pentacles energy right here. That the very kind of core essence of this connection, what has been stirred within them, the fact that they have not been able to successfully sort of stuff down or figure out. There's a lot of mystery here. There's a lot that is charged within this. This can talk about somebody who is highly agitated at this point in time, very frustrated at not being able to figure this situation out, figure you out, figure out why they can't just move past this, why they can't just shut the door to this, struggling to kind of keep their footing, stay grounded during this period of ascension and activation. All of these different kind of parts of themselves, psychic gifts, perceptions of energy, feeling you energetically around them, things that are not what they are accustomed to sort of dealing with, and that this is a struggle to sort of move through this state of unknowing, to, take kind of a wider perspective and understand that while there may be a lot of fear-based energies at this point in time, that eventually these storms will pass. And so even with this kind of stormy skies is bringing to mind like dark night of the soul energy, that can tie in with kind of this lack, things that are starting to fall apart in their material world. And as part of the journey, as part of kind of the phase that they are at right now, it's almost like they are not recognizing with this idea here with fulfillment, in this kind of fruit, this peach here, the state of Georgia, even the country of Georgia may be kind of a confirmation for some of you. It's this idea here of kind of the spiritual nourishment, the soul sustenance that this connection provides. Your twin flame is almost, it's obvious, it's staring them right in the face, where that anchor can be found, where that perspective can be found, where answers can be found, through this kind of period in their life. Although a lot of this is like a personal internal struggle, that process of the dark night of the soul, of a kind of transmuting one version of themselves that has been moving through the world. But it's like they just keep ignoring the obvious, that in your presence, with you, as strange and electric as this connection feels, there's also a sense of sweetness, a sense of familiarity, of comfort. You represent soul food for this person, nourishment in a lot of ways that they are unable to kind of find in the material world. And at this point where they're almost going through like an existential crisis, they're resisting, they're almost kind of dismissing this connection, almost like a forbidden fruit in some manner, that kind of looking in all different sort of directions for the answer that is clearly right there. With this moon here in the background and kind of this mist over it, this can also talk about a lot of shadow work, a lot of sort of patterns within themselves, beyond just the intensity and nature of this connection and what's being activated within them. There may also be some things that have been triggered by this situation. Again, this idea of like, you know, this connection, this idea of happiness and fulfillment, you know, in some way feeling very inaccessible to them. Like they're not good enough. They're not deserving of this. You're too good for them. This is too good to be true in some manner. And a lot of this can tie into like inner child wounds, core wounds, patterns, behaviors, things that have stemmed from rejection and love from their past that they're needing to address in order to have that breakthrough to step forward and almost claim this love, claim this connection, which is right there and which is ready. You know, change is in the air. Again, this kind of ripe fruit, all these preparations that they've made, even if they're not necessarily understanding on a spiritual level what is drawing them back to you. It's almost back to these pentacles here. It's somebody who may have been making like a list of pros and cons. They've really thought this out, you know, and in some way it's almost like wanting to open those lines of communication to touch upon your energy in a more direct manner, you know, kind of, again, open those lines of communication with these birds right here and the idea of freedom, and yet they're feeling very constricted from that, you know, being very drawn and enticed to you as a place where they can be seen and they can be vulnerable, and yet at the same time that vulnerability is very terrifying for them. There's a fear of opening up, of, you know, speaking from the heart, speaking their personal truth, even expressing some fears that they have, or, you know, fully kind of describing what's going on in their life at this point in time. They may be somebody, you know, who really kind of, their self-esteem is defined by what they can produce, titles and acclaim and things of a mundane nature. And so as these kind of aspects of their life may be going through a bit of a strain at this point in time, they're not feeling their best, and therefore, you know, they're not necessarily able to conceptualize that they have much value and worth beyond what they can just provide or kind of give to the connection in that very 3D sense. You know, speaking very plainly about their feelings may be something that it's very foreign to them. And it's something which, it's a block at this point in time. This feels like somebody where, you know, unless they're certain, unless they have all the evidence, unless they are, you know, most likely assured of victory, they're going to continue to hold back, which may over the course of time have really cost them different sorts of opportunity for wish fulfillment. Somebody who just takes the safe road, the easy road, you know, the predictable road, somebody who is not necessarily a risk taker in a lot of ways. And it almost feels like something where they're being forced outside of their comfort zone at this point in time through kind of these storms, you know, through their power of choice being almost taken away from them. Like change is going to happen. They've passed that fork in the road where, you know, they had this opportunity to sort of, by virtue of free will, really evaluate where they have been putting their focus, their beliefs, any sort of untapped potential within themselves that they've been stuffing down out of, you know, trying to please other people, that sort of the time has passed for that. This is almost like the divine calling judgment day on this person right here with this power card. And it's very much a struggle. It's almost like they're forced into change at this point in time and feeling very restricted as far as what they can say about it because they don't necessarily fully understand it. And as much as they are drawn to you as this kind of source of sanctuary, as this nectar, as having this wisdom that might help them make sense of all of this, at the same time it's almost like a lot of stubbornness, like they would rather out of pride just kind of suffer in silence rather than break the ice at this point in time, admit that they were wrong, or come to you in an energy of need, out of a fear of rejection, out of a fear of being seen in such a state, seen without their mask on, seen in kind of a compromised position or in their hour of need. And it feels to be something that it's really this internal struggle to speak some kind of personal truth, to ask for help, maybe even beyond this connection, to ask others around them for help. It's almost like somebody who's just going to want to go it alone, even if it's the hard way. It's taking the long way home, making things more difficult on themselves than it needs to be. So I'm going to take a look now at their potential actions towards you. Okay, so we have 5th chakra, Archangel Gabriel, action, and the garden and the gate. So this 5th chakra, this throat chakra energy, this is very promising as far as breaking through that wall of silence. However, with this garden and the gate and it's closed, it definitely feels to be some kind of restrained communication. They may give you just very little, a small indication, not so much out of, it doesn't really feel like an energy that they're trying to hold anything back. It's almost just with these 2 horses here in the action card, and they're not running side by side. One is sort of behind the other. It's like they're bringing forth something to you that is kind of like the maximum of what they are capable of at this stage of their journey. So this can be looked at as almost like a checkpoint, taking the temperature of this situation, something that they say or that they provide, maybe even that you are able to sort of glean and observe very quietly, kind of on the outside looking in. So things that they post on social media, for example, that give you a better gauge of kind of where they are at on their personal journey, where, you know, this kind of stage of evolution is for them, things that they are needing to sort of let go of, things that they are starting to rebuild or trying to kind of put the pieces back together with. And it provides you kind of a wider scope of, you know, an explanation of kind of any delays in this situation. You know, it's kind of like it's something, but it's not necessarily all that you had hoped for. Like this person still has some more growth and evolution that they need to do. And yet at the same time, with this idea of action, this is like the Chariot energy here from Tarot. It does kind of open the door to a new chapter between the 2 of you. It gives you some kind of perspective, food for thought, basically, you know, that you can take away from the situation and maybe have a little more compassion for this person and where they are at. Maybe this is something that, you know, provides you with just what you needed to hear, or the evidence to start, you know, detaching even further from the expectation of outcomes or from any kind of space you've been holding. It gives you some kind of an understanding that, you know, this person is in the process, your twin flame's in the process of creating balance for themselves. The divine is working with them, sending them signs, giving them messages, trying to get through. But it almost like makes clear kind of where you are at on your journey versus where they are. And it's this idea here, even with this imagery on the garden and the gate, it's like somebody waiting for someone to arrive, someone to come home. So whatever kind of action, whatever sort of words are spoken, or the level of communication that they are expressing, it's evidence of progress, and yet they're not home yet. They're not at this place, at least in kind of the immediate future, of being able to sort of fully show up in a healed version, in a balanced version of self. They're not able to kind of meet you at that level of consistency that you're necessarily, you know, providing to them at this point in time. This is almost the energy of like not now, but not never. So some kind of progress is evidenced, but it feels like leaves a lot to be desired. It's a really great map check for you that you can then kind of, the takeaway from that is to search within and see what's your next move. This may be something that what is demonstrated or displayed to you or told to you, you know, it sort of reinforces your commitment to yourself to continue loving yourself, continue working on your abundance. It may also be something which, you know, it's a confirmation that your efforts on yourself have been rippling out to this individual. They're hearing the call as well. They may be taking a different route, taking the longer route, doing things the hard way, but it evidences some kind of progress. So you can continue to move forth vindicated in a sense that this journey has not been for nothing, but also with the awareness that they still have a little bit further to go. There are still miles left for them to walk, or run, or almost be dragged by spirit at different kind of points and to varying degrees on this journey individually before they can kind of meet you on your level, before they're kind of the adequate match for you vibrationally and what you're cultivating within yourself. And of course, as you continue to grow, you continue to evolve, that bar continues to be raised. And so again, kind of this food for thought that gives you some sort of evidence, something to think about, something to work with. So it comes out of this territory of just, you know, theory and sort of watching readings and having to kind of glean information that way. This feels like something in the material world, you know, that kind of strikes a chord within your heart one way or another. This may be something that's very triggering or very reassuring, some kind of combination of both, some sort of a stir up here, either directly or indirectly. This may even be something that, you know, they post that's just kind of like a little wink, that idea of like a protectiveness. They're not ready to come out necessarily and, you know, move towards you very boldly, but they're going to give you some kind of sign that they're still thinking about you. You know, maybe something that they say, some kind of a song that they post that has like significance for the two of you in your history with one another, that is that kind of wink or nod, that bit of encouragement of like, I'm still here and I'm working on it. I'm working on coming back towards you. So I'm going to get a few messages from their higher self, and then I'll close it out with some guidance. Okay. And they say, I should have been more honest with you about how I was feeling at the time. So that confirms a lot of overwhelm, definitely an indication here, a confirmation that the intensity of this bond that you have experienced has been mutually experienced by your twin flame. You've been activated, they've been activated. You've gone through a dark night of the soul. We see here in this power card, they are going through a dark night of the soul. This is almost that energy of parallel paths, and, you know, kind of that route to becoming the love that you are seeking, toward that fearless self-love. It's almost like you're taking two different routes to reach that same destination. And so this can tie in with this idea of communication. For some of you, this will be where they're bringing forth something. It may be a small something, some indication of where they are at, where they don't necessarily know how to put to words fully what they're experiencing. They're still in this process of gestation and growth, yet it provides you with a bit of confirmation, almost like that it wasn't you, it was them. As cliche as that might sound, something that is demonstrated kind of, it feels like brings that home as like a truth, as a reality, not just as an excuse, not just something that people say to try and, you know, sort of ease the burden of hurt that is exchanged between individuals. But that, like, very honestly, they were overwhelmed. They reacted when they should have responded. Even that in and of itself can be that kind of evidence of growth, but that also demonstrates they still have a lot further to go before they are at a place within themselves and vibrationally where they can reciprocate with you in a positive and constructive manner. They also say, I got spooked. So again, another confirmation of that. And it's really tying in for me with these horses here, and the idea of, you know, like when horses are, well, especially anybody who's ever ridden a horse and has been kind of bucked off of the horse, you know, and the horse gets spooked and it just bolts. There's nothing that you can do within reason to kind of stop that from happening. And it feels like something that just in a very kind of benign way, in passing, you know, it ties in again with this idea of power and that lightning, just something energetically set off this person's like flight reaction, their fight response to kind of fight their way out of the situation. And once distance was created between the two of you, you know, and kind of the bumps and bruises that were left in the aftermath of that, very mutually experienced, you know, emotionally by the two of you. It feels like they feel very bad about how they acted in this situation before, anything that they kind of overreacted about, over dramatized, the response that they took maybe to just, you know, with that Two of Swords, like completely cut you off, ghost you, block communication, be non-responsive, just go cold, go silent in this situation, sort of withdraw into themselves. All of that can tie into this idea, like we saw on the moon with this fulfillment energy here, that, you know, this can be kind of something templated in them from their upbringing. This can be kind of the learned behavior, shut down when things get too intense, run when things get too intense, and that this is something they're starting to really look at, but are having a difficult time fully grasping this concept, and especially then also kind of creating new tools in order to lean more into response rather than reaction going forward. They also say no other compares to you. So if this is somebody who has dated other people since you've been together, they have attempted to, focus on matters of the material world, surface level connections, things that are not so intense, not so triggering, not so challenging, people that don't expect as much out of them, for example. It's almost a sense of these situations might have been fulfilling for a period of time, but then something has been awakened within them, something has been activated within them by meeting you and through this connection that they've not been able to turn off. They've not been able to shut that off. They've also not been able to experience that same level of depth and intensity with another person before. Their attention keeps being drawn back to you because of that. And this feels like somebody who's been kind of on this mission. Their marching orders have changed where, the mission initially was kind of stuff this down, run away from this, hide away from this as much as possible. Now those marching orders are try to figure this out, try to make sense out of all of this, try to, come to some place of explanation as to, why you are still affecting them, why this connection has made such a deep impact, what all of this means, these changes, these activations, these spiritual sensations. So definitely, your twin flame is in this process of like trying to find these answers, which they're feeling is almost like the key to being able to create change in this situation with you. They also say you inspire me. So definitely a lot of them could be observing you from afar, literally in the material world, especially if you're coworkers or, you're in physical proximity with one another. They're definitely watching you when you won't notice them. They're taking note of you. They're observing you. If they are, hearing other people talk about you, they may not respond, and yet they're soaking in all that information. They can also be, looking you up online, watching your social media, kind of hovering in the shadows very silently, taking notes almost for any kind of healing, any kind of prioritization of, stepping onto that ascension path. Anything you put out there, you discuss, or even just that you're embodying vibrationally within you regarding your twin flame journey, regarding, a spiritual awakening, ascension, all these things that have been kicked off by this connection. It's helping your twin flame to come to some of these answers that may in other ways be elusive, things that you see or you kind of, things that they are seeing that you put out there. It's almost like they're going then and researching these topics. You're sort of leading the way for them on this journey to expand their mind, expand their horizons, expand their perception beyond their comfort zone, beyond what they have known and been familiar with up to this point in time. And you really inspire them to, kind of lean into this process of surrender, to allow kind of the storms to pass, to find some sort of anchoring within themselves. A lot of this healing and ascension you may have done on your own. And so as though they are feeling very alone at this point in time on their personal journey, they at least have you to look to as kind of like a beacon or an example of how you managed to survive all of this, how you came out on top in this situation. Even if you don't feel you've come out on top, they are seeing you as somebody who has really achieved a level of self-mastery within yourself and regarding this dynamic and the circumstances you find yourselves in. And it's something that they're taking notes about that. They're taking note of it and trying to apply those same principles to their life to help them through this process of personal alchemy. So I'm going to get a romance angel for some guidance for you. Okay, and we have new love. A new person has stirred your romantic feelings. So this is really tying into this idea of new life. This can be that confirmation that the current circumstances between the two of you, this is not all there is to the story. This energy of kind of like new love. It's don't expect this person to return necessarily in the same version of themselves that you remember. As much as you have gone through changes and transformation, you know, they're going to need to go through some level of personal transformation in order to match this new vibration that you are, this new person that you are. So this is this encouragement to kind of like raise your standards, you know, keep that bar raised. Remember the work that you have done to kind of pick up the pieces to make sense out of all of this situation. Use that as a teaching tool for this individual. If they're reaching out to you, and kind of like with those two horses in the action card that are not necessarily on the same page, you know, understanding that it's an act of self-love often to, you know, reject that which is not a suitable match for what we have cultivated within ourselves and are seeking to have mirrored back. So your history with this person need not dictate the future between the two of you. And it almost is this energy of reminding you that you have a lot more control in this situation, a lot more influence in this situation than you might give yourself credit for. They are looking to you, most of them in kind of like the material world, as much as they may not admit that, they're looking to you for an example. So be that leader for them. Continue to step forth through the processes of personal transmutation and change. Lead the way to that new version, becoming that you know, more clarified version of self-love, which then encourages the vibration of higher love to join you, to meet you there. You know, allowing this person as well the time to very organically go through this process of personal transformation in order to make this situation work, or to almost reap the fullest benefits and rewards that's possible out of a twin flame dynamic. Two people must change. Two people must be willing to go through that process of surrender and rebirth within themselves. You know, and kind of when you have that sort of map check, when you get that kind of perspective, maybe even just something that you see, you know, this can be something which helps you then to sort of redirect your focus. Keep that focus on self, you know, keeping that standard very high, raising that standard from what you've experienced previously, understanding you're different, therefore the love you are needing to receive in kind must be different from what was permissible or tolerable before you started on this, you know, grand adventure of kind of like doing the shadow work and leaning into your own process of personal transformation and ascension. So giving the situation time, not completely losing hope if this person isn't fully ready to kind of meet you on your level. Take note of any progress that they have made. You know, understand that we are all a work in progress, and especially for someone who's taken the long road, doing things the hard way, it can create unnecessary delays. You know, searching within yourself then at that point, at that crossroads point, at that fork in the road, and saying, you know, is this something that I want to continue to hold space for actively? Or for some of you, this may be kind of like that point of closure or confirmation that you need forever or for now to set your sights on a different kind of horizon. You know, just because this person might not be ready, might be kind of stubborn, might not be doing the work, willing to change and grow and evolve, does not mean that, you know, it's either them or nothing. You know, the universe can definitely align you with somebody who meets you where you are at, who kind of matches your frequency, you know, is not bringing to the table the same kind of like wounding and shadows that your twin flame has been presenting you with, or has not been confronting within themselves. So really kind of like taking that time to fully evaluate sort of what's presented to you in the here and now, keeping in mind that kind of perspective of what you would like to experience in a healthy and reciprocal partnership, and kind of doing that comparison and contrasting. If you feel inclined to sort of hold some space, continue to wait for this person's transformation to, you know, further develop, then by all means follow that guidance first and foremost. But when you get that kind of checkpoint with them, if it feels like it's just not meeting your standards, you're growing too quickly for how, you know, they are following or they are responding in kind, then that might be time to, or the opportunity to kind of detach, sort of put this situation to rest and set your sights on, you know, a different kind of love, a different kind of connection as far as your forever person and the partnership you're trying to call in. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got Z, G, Q, F, E, V, O, L, and A. So those are your messages, group 1. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, group 2. You chose this piece of copper. Okay, so I'm going to start by looking at what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you in the connection, or just any other details that want to come up as far as things that are going on with them in their life right now. Okay, we've got the Ace of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The King of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Ace of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. The World, which is fixed energy, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. Chaos and conflict, and a change in the wind. So with this King of Swords, this is really bringing to mind that your twin flame has reached some kind of point of clarity, some kind of a period of indecision, being very mentally conflicted about the connection, trying to sort of figure out or decipher either, you know, some kind of greater meaning that had been very elusive to them about this idea almost of the two of you not meeting by accident. This idea with the World here is kind of that they're feeling very lucky to have crossed paths with you in this lifetime. That might be quite a change and shift from how they could have felt very oppressed, very put upon by this connection previously. If they had felt very burdened, there's clarity that has come. There's a lightness that has come. They have almost kind of reached the end of some phase of fighting the inevitable, being in denial of their feelings for you in some manner, which kind of puts them back at square one. Something that they may have really tried to distract themselves from with this idea here on this chaos and conflict. Interestingly, we've got zebras in both of these cards right here. You know, in this card here with the chaos and conflict, it's the zebra who's wearing the giraffe skin, but that giraffe skin is almost kind of dissolving and his true colors are starting to show through. So again, this idea of like feelings that had been denied for you, kind of this soul knowing, this soul recognition that may have really been something that your twin flame had tried to suppress, had tried to run from, had tried to over-explain, kind of leaning into an overly logical mind rather than sort of trusting in their heart, trusting in this pull and this magnetization to you. It's sort of reaching the end of this period of internal conflict and turmoil. This idea here with this gazebo, kind of also interesting, you know, in both of these cards as well, we have things that are dissolving. So this feels to be almost like some kind of tradition, maybe some kind of belief systems about love, maybe, you know, third parties, whether this was family, friends, or even other partnerships that had been an interference in the connection in the past, maybe even just a blockage or a barrier that had caused your twin flame to need to put the brakes on and just kind of lean into denial because they weren't free and able to move towards you openly or readily, or something about this connection really called into question everything they have come to know about love and partnership, you know, the nature of connection, the soul, you know, the nature of eternity and life, just all these different concepts. These things are starting to really fall away, that through this place almost of surrender and certainty, trusting that intuition, trusting their heart, it's creating a ripple effect out into, you know, other circumstances within themselves. They're breaking down these walls from within, and the outside barricades and barriers are starting to slip away. Masks are coming off on people around them. They're starting to see people's true colors, not even necessarily that these are bad people or that these situations are, you know, bad or that there's anything kind of wrong or negative about these things, but it's almost like, in a way, your twin flame is recognizing how whatever the life is that they've created for themselves, whatever that looks like, it is no longer a match for who they are discovering themselves to be, that it's no longer compatible with almost this fullest potential that has been activated and unearthed within them by virtue of this connection. Almost this process of struggle and denial has been a catalyzing force for change from within. It feels like your twin flame is leaning into this period of balance, trying to come to terms with sort of the choices that they've made up to this point in their life and how that is reflected in their material reality, how they may have kind of given away their power of choice, sort of denied the truth of their heart in the interest of what would other people think, not just as it pertains to this connection, but it feels like in a larger scope, just how they've been moving through their life in general. They're starting to step more into the authenticity of who they are, to shed these masks, to shed these versions of themselves that had been the product of other people's projections, or that they had felt that they needed to almost chameleon themselves into in order to be well liked, in order to fit in order to adhere to some kind of standard that was directly given, or that they had just sort of gleaned, was kind of the expectation of who they should be. And it feels to be something where, you know, it's kind of the idea of the world is sort of a wrap up. It's a wrap. It's closing up. So some kind of like long-term belief system, behavior patterns. This feels to be like beliefs about love and partnership, that this kind of the conditions or the nature or the circumstances through which the two of you have intersected with one another directly challenged that in the past. And this may have been something that, as much as they were drawn to you, they're very conflicted inside about that. It feels like they are wrapping that up. They're coming to a place of conclusion with a lot of things in their life. They have gained some kind of clarity. They have almost reached this plateau in some way, and they're able to have this wider vantage point of kind of an inclination of who they are. This doesn't feel to be somebody who is truly like stepped into their authenticity, but a lot of that armor, a lot of those masks are starting to kind of fall away. And from that place of being freed of something, almost this burden of like an expectation, a role that they have been trying to play, they are better able to gauge from this freer perspective, sort of what is in their best interest moving forward, and what does not serve this highest good, what does not serve kind of this new horizon that they feel is available to them internally within themselves, and also what they are wanting to experience and work toward and achieve with you in the connection. So it feels like they're seeing you as somebody very balanced, that you take the burdens that you've experienced, the burdens that they have almost created in your life in this connection through maybe their denial, their running away, they're being kind of stuck in certain patterns, and they are seeing you. It feels like a lot of this may be kind of just intuiting this. This King of Swords can be a very empathic energy, so something that they're feeling into energetically, although with this world, this can tie into, you know, observing you online, seeing you with fresh eyes, things that might have been very triggering or confusing. They're starting to appreciate that a lot more. How you stand in your autonomy, you stand in your individuality. You've taken the circumstances of, you know, this very unexpected and very life-altering, you know, very kind of activating connection with your twin flame, and the ways in which you have shouldered that burden, you've carried that weight, you've held that truth and that knowing of who this person is to you, and the weight of that kind of single-handedly for this period of time. And they're filled with a lot of respect for you because of that. It's something that they didn't appreciate before, but again, as kind of the armor's coming off, all the untruths are sort of dissolving away, and there's more of their authenticity coming forth. More of them on the soul level shining out in the material world. They're able to perceive you from this fresh lens. And as much as in the past they may have thought you were too opposite to work, it was too difficult, it was too different, it was too unknown, they're really starting to see just how similar, how well you both fit together despite these obvious differences. Even though these are zebras, it's the idea of like birds of a feather. And this can also really tie into with these two zebras that are kind of almost like following one another here. You know, with your energy of kind of the courage that you are displaying to sort of step beyond, to remove or to allow to fall away all which does not serve you, whether that's belief systems, things that on a vibrational level, lifestyle choices, habits, friendships, relationships, you know, changes that you've made in terms of your what you're doing for a living, what your focus is on, ways in which you're focusing more on your spirituality, you're stepping more into the light, you're shining that light very unapologetically to the world. Your twin flame is definitely wanting to mimic that. They're wanting to move in that direction. They may have been very fearful of change. This very fixed energy here of the world, definitely stuck in patterns, change being a very difficult concept or very frightening, very kind of somebody who would do everything they could, you know, to not have to change, even if it meant sticking in something that just made them entirely miserable. It's predictable, it's easy, it's known, so it's kind of better than stepping out into that new territory. And as much as you have been working to free and extract yourself from some things, even kind of detach from the energy of this situation with your twin flame, detach from any kind of expectations, this is something where they're picking that up energetically and it's drawing them to that point as well. They're mimicking you. Without even meaning to, without even knowing why. This is definitely the energy here of the changes that you're making have made a ripple effect out upon your twin flame. Slowly but surely, they are stepping into more of their authenticity, and it's thanks to you. For some of you, this may be something where through kind of this observation energy here, through kind of just like, you know, not stepping out, not making themselves known, just kind of like watching from afar. For some of you, they're really able to credit you as that source of inspiration. For others, this is something where, you know, again, this is like an energetic exchange. It's intuitive. It's not something that if they were asked directly, they would say, oh, I'm leaning into change because my twin flame has displayed examples of change for me and I feel compelled to follow suit. That wouldn't be the line of conversation that they would have. But it's something that has definitely got their direct attention, how they're holding you, they're experiencing your energy and their feelings for you as less of a burden than it had been in the past, and more of, they're seeing more possibility with this. It's something that it carries a hopeful energy. It's something which, you know, they're almost seeing this connection as like encouraging them to step into that best version of self rather than pressuring them outside of the comfort zone. So it's holding you in a very different sense, and it's, you know, inspiring them to take action, to move away from some things. Even just this vibrational ripple within it could be triggering other things or people in their lives that are not in alignment with that version of authenticity. Some of those people are just kind of naturally moving away. There may be a lot of chaos and conflict, people in their world, in their reality picking fights. Again, kind of masks coming off, true colors being shown, that is helping your twin flame to really kind of separate the wheat from the chaff and decide like who stays in this next and new kind of version of myself and what needs to just be kind of put to rest and sort of moved beyond. Some people are just leaving of their own volition. Other things, you know, are really being presented right now as kind of having served their purpose, whether that's people or ideas, behaviors, you know, just ways in which they've constructed their material world and life that are needing to kind of be shed in order to step into that next version of what is possible for them. So I'm going to take a look now at some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that your twin flame is dealing with, either as it relates to this connection or even just in their life in general at this point. We have diligence, action, and solitude. Okay. So this idea here with action and solitude really indicates that there may be some things that they are clinging to that don't necessarily feel good, that stifle them in some way, that kind of, with all this yellow energy here, solar plexus energy, very disempowering situations. This can be long-term relationships as well. Partners they have been with long-term, you know, friends they have had since childhood, family dynamics, a career that they have been in for quite some time, a belief system. You know, as much as they're leaning into this energy of change, on a certain level, it's not everything all at once, like with this kind of dissolving zebra skin, or I'm sorry, dissolving giraffe skin right here that is sort of showing the true colors, that element of balance. They're kind of little by little releasing things, but at the same time kind of clinging to a lot which may be very obviously needs to go, which is very disempowering, out of a fear of being alone, out of a fear of, you know, kind of giving away too much all at once, out of a fear of, you know, kind of who are they on the other side of these kind of things that have been maybe in their life as kind of a band-aid for some unhealed wounds within themselves. You know, people and relationships and circumstances they prioritize simply because maybe these are family, you know, these are people they've known for a long time, or it's just almost like they've gotten comfortable in that energy of discomfort. And as much as there are parts of themselves that are screaming for change, that are making it very obvious, there could be a lot of kind of, you know, conflict, a lot of sort of hurt words that are exchanged, and people kind of going off to pout, going off in their own separate corners, getting the silent treatment in some way. It doesn't feel good. You know, it's a lot of shadowy energy right here, and it's almost kind of ignoring the obvious in some level, that, you know, that your twin flame needs to be the change maker in this circumstance. They keep almost just kind of skirting around that. It feels to be kind of a, and it'll resonate differently for each of you, but it'll be some kind of like a major relationship or something that has a lot of power, a lot of influence over them. This can be like an overbearing parent. This can be a job that, you know, just demands so much of them, consumes so much of their time, you know, that it doesn't leave a lot of room for kind of personal growth, personal development, personal, you know, kind of contentment. It's something where they're almost just like a workaholic, for example. This can talk about, you know, a friend group or a particular friend, like a best friend, somebody they've known for a very long time, but it's the kind of person that only kind of leads them down like a shady or shadowy path, something where, you know, it's only drama, it's only chaos, it's only kind of, you know, a limited sort of circumstance. Like it's one thing in particular that if that one thing just is kind of disconnected from, or distance is created, that there would be this ability to, you know, have this kind of breath of fresh air, energetically speaking. And it feels very obvious to your twin who this is or what this is, that is just, it's stifling them in a sense. It's restraining them rather than kind of like contributing to the measure of their life. This may be somebody who's hypercritical, only has negativity to say, only has drama to bring to the table, you know, just kind of leads this person astray in a certain sense, by way of like an infectious vibration, just a very low vibrational person or environment or circumstance that is the biggest challenge at this point in time. It feels like almost little things, easy things, you know, things that don't really matter. These are kind of being let go with ease. There's these pretty significant steps that have been taken, relatively speaking, to make change within your twin's life, but there's something that's like deeply entrenched, deeply ingrained, that is kind of the biggest block at this point in time. You know, somebody that they're kind of dreading standing up for themselves to, having some kind of a conversation, you know, redefining kind of the nature of the dynamic. If it's, you know, this can even tie into like an addiction or something to do with like a lifestyle choice, you know, habits that they have that is really just, it's diminishing their quality of life, maybe even kind of, you know, compromising their health in a lot of ways. And it's pretty obvious that if whatever that is just sort of cut out of the equation, so much changes in a very positive way, and yet there's a clinging to that. It's almost like they're going to work to sort of eliminate all the other burdens except for this most obvious thing that would propel them leaps and bounds beyond where they are at this point in time. And it's something where, you know, it's kind of like they see that bigger picture, but then these little clouds here in the diligence card is almost like they're playing dumb, or they're playing, you know, feigning ignorance in some manner. They're just kind of trying not to look. They're trying not to look at the obvious, you know, that something has gone on far too long. Something is kind of like keeping them away in some manner from accessing kind of like greater stability in the material world. That stability can be in the form of feeling better, you know, their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health, their spiritual health, that it's kind of like it's out of reach because there's all this kind of like debris or, you know, this cloudedness darkness, this kind of things that are obscuring. And again, it's pretty obvious like what this is. It may be a series of things. It could be like a friend group. You know, it could be something to do with like a career, a family dynamic. These can be, you know, these clouds, air energy, thoughts. This can be, you know, belief systems in some way. Self-talk, you know, maybe some kind of self-help, some kind of therapy or counseling that your twin flame could benefit from to just sort of make sense, kind of plan or project into a different kind of future for themselves, that they're sort of avoiding that. They're kind of busying themselves with the easier tasks at this point. But then there's one like particularly difficult hurdle or something that just makes them very fearful. The idea of like if they pull the plug on that, a fear that they'll fall, you know, that they'll kind of lose their footing. This definitely can also, with this idea of this little sort of this albatross flying up here above this scenery, this can tie into, you know, a job where they've achieved some kind of success, some kind of a position, some kind of a, you know, a level of power or prestige or responsibility, and yet it keeps them very disconnected from enjoying their life to the fullest. Like they're all in this circumstance. It's too much of themselves that is invested. They're needing to remain constantly alert, constantly on call, constantly kind of you know, tied to and very enmeshed in this. And this is not to say, you know, that they need to go and quit their job, but maybe just restructure. You know, this could be somebody that won't even allow themselves to take a vacation, for example. There's just so much pressure about, I have to be there. I have to be focused. If I'm not, you know, available at any moment in time, somebody else will just kind of like take this opportunity for me and that from me. And that might be very realistic. But then that also kind of begs the question about like, how sustainable is that? How healthy is that? It feels to be a lot of like stress, which is kind of directly and adversely affecting their health and their well-being in a lot of other ways. So one sort of primary thing that if that changed or was redefined in some manner, was restructured, you know, just kind of even their daily routine, if there were even just a slight change, it feels that it would create so much progress. So relatively speaking, in terms of blocks, challenges, obstacles, and fears, although this feels very daunting, it's almost like they're turning a molehill into a mountain in some manner. So it's very promising as far as it's relating back to, again, this kind of like dissolving giraffe skin here, where they really have done a lot of change. They've done a lot of cleanup work up to this point in time. It may not be apparent to you materially that might be kind of the big thing, is to allow these changes to sort of ripple out into the 3D sense. But it feels like energetically, internally, mentally, there has been, you know, they've reached that King of Swords. They've created a lot of progress inside. Now it's just this matter of sort of allowing that change to take place in the material world as well, which fear is kind of holding them back. Fear of failure, you know, fear of being almost like ostracized if they step out into that authenticity, fear of being judged, fear of being alone, even if they are, you know, even if it relates to like a friends group or some kind of like a partnership. They've just been invested in this so long, they almost might not know what it feels like to be alone in their own energy. You know, kind of it's some variety of stability for them, as uncomfortable and unhappy as that situation might be, that it's like, well, at least there's this, at least I have this. And so they're kind of clinging to that, even though it's stifling the actualization of their fullest potential. It's definitely a roadblock which needs to be transcended for your twin flame to continue along their path of personal growth. But relatively speaking, as kind of significant as this is, it's at least not a huge volume of things. They really, it feels like, have done a lot on the to-do list at the soul level of what has been required, what has been asked of them, what has been brought to their attention, you know, through this kind of process of meeting you, being activated by you. You know, this very intense soul level connection. They have started that process of change, and this is almost like a Goliath that they are facing right now. And they may have made this situation or this person or this circumstance out to be a lot more powerful than it actually is, a lot more influential, a lot more impactful. It's like they're giving a lot of their power away to this situation, when to take that power back would be very simple. A simple conversation, kind of inevitable action, which is almost like long overdue on their part. So I'm going to take a look now at what their potential actions are towards you. Okay, we have hostilities, door to romance, and angel of balance. So this energy here of their potential actions towards you, it's just sort of like in the immediate future. This isn't meant to be a, you know, forever and ever. What are their actions towards you? So, you know, in the relatively speaking near future, you can apply these energies as necessary. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. That's about as far out as this goes as far as range of potential actions. It feels, I'm really drawn back to that idea of like a Goliath, that this person has some kind of like a process of internal battle to carry out change in the material world. This can be kind of a messy breakup with somebody. This can be a lot of conflicts, more of that chaos and conflict in their interpersonal relationships, something that they detach from or that they break free from, that it's going to be a process of kind of getting their footing again. Maybe this is a job that they break away from. Maybe this is going back to school for something, you know, kind of making lifestyle changes, cutting out unhealthy habits, cutting away at addictions. It's a personal battle. It's a personal kind of fight to achieve autonomy and stability that, as far as their actions towards you, it limits what they are able to give. It feels that, you know, this is not where the door to their heart is open. They you know, are in that energy of the Ace of Cups, the Ace of Wands. You know, they're holding you in this very fresh energy. They are not in denial, and yet at the same time, it's a sense of the time is not right in the immediate future to take any kind of decisive action to you. Anything that is brought forward, it may just be suggestive of like further down the road, let's revisit this. It may be something where there's a small kind of like token for affection, a little check-in if you still, you know, are in some level of communication with one another. With all these little hearts, this can talk about like telepathy, sending you energies, you know, from afar to make you aware of their energetic presence. You know, consciously like sending that love vibration to you while they're almost limited in some manner, some capacity for moving forward. If this is like a romantic connection they are having to break away from, there's a sense of them recognizing they need to heal themselves on some level from maybe the very messy process of getting out of that, or even if it's a difficult and uncomfortable situation. With all endings, even if it's, you know, when we're moving in the direction of something positive, there is a layer of grief which must take place. There's energetic cords which must dissolve and be detached from. It's the idea as well, kind of relating back to solitude and angel of balance. This person may not have been on their own in a very long time. It's going to take them time to kind of acclimate to this new version of themselves. And so it almost feels that for some it'll be consciously, for others it's very unconsciously, that they almost hold back from moving towards you very boldly in the immediate future, in the near future, while they are in this process of kind of like calibrating to a new normal. So it actually feels like something where you wouldn't want this person just kind of coming forth right away on the other side of, you know, this process. They're in kind of like a very raw energy. It's, you know, especially as they're stepping into their authenticity. This is a version of them that has not seen the light of day ever or in a long time. You know, they need to kind of learn who they are. This may be somebody who has kind of a tendency or a pattern toward codependency. In order to break free from that, it's going to require a period of time where they are on their own. Maybe this is something you similarly have struggled with, and so you know that it has really taken a period of time on your own, in your own energy, sitting with yourself, learning to love yourself just as you are, flaws and all, you know, to reach this place of internal balance. So in the immediate future, it feels like things are cut away from on their part. They are moving away from kind of the chaos. They're making a decision, taking action, action to cut things out of their life. But then on the other side of that comes a period of almost like this hermit mode, needing to heal, needing to regroup, needing to gather their strength or their resources in some manner so that they can bring forth to you balance rather than kind of the tattered remains, or, you know, this kind of process of healing out of one stage of their life and into this otherness that they are stepping into. And so, you know, again, with this idea of balance, it may be something where, you know, they'll bring forth something a little further on the horizon, but to balance out the situation. When they feel healthier, when they, you know, maybe that's literally healthier, you know, they've detoxed from something, they're feeling better mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. You know, if it's something they're having to break away from, maybe they, you know, have more stability in a new career path. You know, maybe if they're needing to go through a divorce or get out of some other kind of relationship or like a toxic dynamic, then they've got a period of time where they've reestablished themselves. They have found and carved out their own identity separate from how they were kind of moving in this masked energy and this kind of inauthenticity for so long in that other environment, that it's in the best interest of the connection that this person, that your twin flame, takes their time to heal. So this is taking the higher ground. This is taking the noble route in this situation rather than kind of like dumping this messiness onto you. This feels like where they're, you know, taking the initiative to really do that work, to heal, to kind of discover and unlock aspects of themselves that had maybe been, you know, shut off to the intensity and nature of the love you had to offer, that settled for or was drawn toward things of a lower vibrational nature, things that kind of mirrored these wounds within themselves. This really feels like where, you know, they begin that process of renewal within, of healing, of kind of like leaning into this balance of having compassion and forgiveness for themselves in order to bring that forth, to create repair in the situation with you and in any other areas of their life where they're needing to make amends. So a little bit of something, most likely energetic, could be their possible actions towards you, but for the immediate future, it feels very self-directed, not like narcissistic, you know, just self-absorbed, but it's really, they're prioritizing the need for themselves to heal, to love themselves back to a state of wholeness before they can be bringing forth something of value and worth that can create peace and a very beautiful energy in a connection with you and in other aspects and areas of their life. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self, and then I'm going to close it out with some guidance for you. Okay, so 5 cards came out. I will take those, although group 1 only got 4, but I think that's okay. All right, so we have, I got spooked. Yeah, so something about the nature of this connection, who you are, you know, the light that you hold inside of you, aspects of you that triggered these deeply embedded kind of wounds and blockages within your twin flame. It caused them to definitely run from you in this connection in the past, and they have come to this place actually of this awareness within themselves that anything they'd been projecting upon you, it in fact stemmed from some kind of deficit within themselves. It's, you know, tying back again to this chaos and conflict card, this feels like somebody who's going through this series of kind of these epiphanies or aha moments. They're starting to become very self-reflective, starting to take ownership for their life and for their choices and kind of the world that has created for them, what the yield of those choices has been. And so part of that is kind of this self-forgiveness work, forgiving themselves for doing the best they could with kind of the unhealed wounds and shadows and the tools they had at their disposal before, healing, learning some new kind of coping mechanisms, new communication strategies so they can bring forth something to you that is more lasting and consistent rather than coming in kind of this raw version of themselves where, you know, the bliss between the two of you it might be short-lived. They're kind of admitting that they're still feeling very vulnerable. And the more they're leaning into this change, they're needing time to create that balance within themselves so that when they come to you, they can come right and in more of an energy of consistency than they had been in before. This card also came out in group 1, so if you felt inclined to watch that group, you might want to do so after this. There could be additional messages there for you. They also say, how could you still love me after all I've done? So definitely if there had been, you know, other people meddling in this connection, or just something that they projected upon you, ways in which they judged you, you know, had kind of failed to be consistent with you out of sort of this feeling of what would people think, or, you know, we're just saying you two are, you know, too different to be compatible, as these two zebras here really are showing that they've come to just the opposite conclusion. They've kind of come around to the truth of, even if you're, you know, literally very different from one another, there's a cohesiveness. You balance one another out in a very deep and profound level that they have not been able to experience in connection since or before. And so again, more of this idea of like needing to heal. They're needing to forgive themselves first and foremost, to heal, to come to a place of acceptance, even leaning into the energy of forgiving themselves for not being able to forgive themselves at this point in time. That is a crucial first step that, you know, can greatly benefit them in terms of their personal healing journey at this stage in time. And so that feels to be top priority, is kind of as they are letting things go, as they are sort of shedding these layers, shedding this conditioning, shedding these wounds that they have worn like an armor around themselves, and that has really kind of dictated how they have moved through life, the choices they have made. Guardedness, like a closed off heart chakra energy. They're needing to sort of embody that energy of forgiveness and love within themselves first and foremost, before they can bring measurable and lasting change to you in this circumstance. They also say, I don't know if I can meet your expectations. So a bit of a lack mentality that they're still working with. They still are recognizing they're a work in progress. There's a lot that needs to be kind of lifted away from their life. They're feeling very vulnerable, even in just the level of change that they are at right now. They may be very fearful as far as, you know, deeper changes, other changes that need to be made in their life, and the sense of, you know, kind of like years of conditioning, years of patterning, a version of themselves, this deep inauthenticity, this mask or caricature that they've been moving through the world as. This is a part of them that is coming out into the light of day that they're very unfamiliar with. They're needing to get to know themselves on a whole new level, a version of themselves they had not up to this point in time accepted as who they are, but have really been striving to kind of stuff down, suppress, or deny. So a lot of personal healing, personal acceptance work that is the gatekeeper to them being able to open their heart fully to you, to show you their heart, to be authentic with you, requires them to first be very authentic with themselves. And they also say something is still missing for me, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. So again, trying to learn this new version of themselves, the true them, the authentic them on the other side of other people's expectations, the roles they have been made to fulfill, have convinced themselves they must fulfill. So they're in a process of seeking, of kind of creating a new normal for themselves on the other side of what has been released and needs to still be let go. And they also say, I'm sorry I couldn't do right by you. So again, a lot of regrets over the way they mishandled you in the connection previously, that they projected upon you, blamed you, pushed you away, you know, kind of denied their feelings for you, tried to stuff these down or suppress these, blame you for difficulties or inadequacies within themselves. There's a sense of, regardless of how old they are, there's a lot of things coming up that may really stem from childhood, that they're having a hard time coming to terms with the fact they've not dealt with these things before now. This can be some kind of distorted relationship with their family or upbringing. This can be sort of early romances or heartbreak that has caused them to shut down in the heart level, create a very distorted perspective of partnerships. It has affected how they've shown up or how they've held back with you. Again, this idea of like sorry and needing to forgive themselves first and foremost. not being sure about how to move through the world any other way, but being deeply affected to change nonetheless. So still a work in progress, kind of the next layer and journey, it feels like, of your twin flames personal journey, personal kind of aspect in this ascension process that you two find yourselves in, is this deep kind of work of self-love and self-forgiveness, for kind of operating with the tools that they had, or at a certain kind of level of awareness at a particular point in time, forgiving themselves for the past, and creating apology by way of changed action going forward. So I'm going to get a romance angel for some guidance, and then I'll close it out with some initials. Okay, we have trust. The situation is calling for you to have faith. So this is a beautiful confirmation right here that, if there's still more time that needs to take place before the two of you can come back together, repair what has been torn apart between the two of you, make amends, work toward, physical 3D union, or establishing a new foundation with one another, Spirit is really encouraging you to understand that your twin flame taking the time to heal, taking the time to lean deeply into their personal growth, does in fact benefit the connection very deeply. That if they were to rush back in with a lot of these kind of unhealed wounds, it would just almost create even more distortion in the situation. They need to really be tasked with healing themselves in order to bring forth healing energy to you, so that the bond between you can ascend beyond what you've experienced with one another in the past, beyond those patterns, beyond those deficiencies, beyond that sense of lack and distortion. It's an inside job first and foremost that then ripples out into change in the material world. So trust in almost the detour or the idea of divine timing, as much as the ego may struggle. And especially in these modern times we find ourselves in, where immediate gratification, like a microwave culture, is just, that's the trend. That's what we become accustomed to, is kind of like now and immediate. Cultivating patience is especially important. Learning to hold this situation in the energy of love, and trusting that in the time and manner best suited to everyone, change will happen in a material sense in this connection. If you change how you hold the situation, you change your concept of time, and a timeline, a deadline that you may have really prescribed on this situation, and learn to surrender to the choreography of the divine. Trust that Spirit is working with your twin flame, that they need to heal themselves first in order to be a healing presence for you. When you open up to that place of trust, you cultivate the vibration of receptivity within you, which continues to magnetize your twin flame, your person, closer into your reality in this time and manner that is best suited for the optimal results between the two of you. To rush back in, to come in, as the unhealed version of yourselves, only just kind of leaves a lot of loose ends. It doesn't maximize that potential. So almost the longer that this process takes, the longer that your twin takes to do that work within themselves, they are, even at a distance, serving the connection. They are doing what is best in the interest of the connection by doing what is best for themselves. So honoring that place, honoring the organic journey, kind of the difficulties that they are having with dealing with any Goliaths in their life, with making changes. There may be stumbling blocks. It could be the energy of like one step forward, two steps back. Anytime change is afoot, it's usually not linear. Change can be very messy, especially extracting oneself from kind of like long-term patterns, long-term dynamics. Change is not easy. Trusting that it's in the best interest of everybody, though, what is happening. There's definitely movement and progress that is happening in this circumstance. It may be slower than you like, but it is happening nonetheless. So in the meantime, using this time to your advantage, looking within and saying, what are some areas in my life where, maybe I'm just holding on to things, whether this is connections, belief systems, energies, and vibrations, simply because it has occupied a space within me for so long, simply because it's what I've come to know of myself, and I am fearful of what I am on the other side of these crutches. You can definitely help your twin flame by being very fearless and being very proactive in that process of transmutation and evolution. Again, not a linear process. Personal alchemy, it's ever evolving. We're constantly tasked with changing and evolving. Stagnation happens when we think, okay, that's it, the job's done, I've completed, I've changed, I've transformed, that's the end of the story. No, it's something that's, once it starts, it's something which you need to kind of move into that mindset of change is the constant. That nothing stays the same, or it can, but you're missing out on so much to just kind of like remain, or to hold on to things that are meant to be kind of like outgrown, or just sort of let go of, or transcended in some manner. So using this time to your benefit, healing and trusting that out there, wherever your twin flame may be, that they are also kind of taking the steps they are guided to take and that are necessary for them to kind of rise into a more healthy and healed version of themselves, in order to bring healthy and healed energy to you in this connection in the future. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person. You can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got E, F, P, A, V, U, X, Y, and W. So those are your messages, group 2. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Selenite wand. Okay, so I'm going to start by looking into what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you and the connection right now, and just anything else that wants to come through about what's going on in their life in general at this point. Okay, so we have the Six of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Seven of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Knight of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Three of Swords, which is more air energy, Not for You. And Imagine. So it looks like your twin is sitting in a lot of regret over words that were spoken or that were held back on in the past, maybe due to some kind of fear of intimacy, fear of connection, fear of commitment, something to do with kind of the stage of evolution that your situation between one another was at. Whether this was a crossroads point where they were invited to accept a cup of love that was offered to them, where there was a lot kind of pushing them to take action in this situation, to express some kind of truth or feelings, and they chose instead to sort of hold back or withdraw. Or if you were seeing one another, you're in a connection, you're in a relationship with one another, and it was time to take things to the next level, to get more serious, and they got cold feet and ran. Whatever that situation looks like, they're having a hard time forgiving themselves for that. They seem to be, in kind of just being very confronted with like a lack mentality in general, a lot of closed doors for them in a lot of ways. A lot of things where they're feeling very stuck at this point in their life, efforts that they have made up to this point to, really just run from this situation. It's almost like they've been stopped in their tracks in a certain way. Spirit is not allowing them to kind of continue along this path, but they're forced to almost go within to reflect on how some immature behavior, some kind of shady or sneaky behavior, maybe how they just cut you off with no notice, maybe even kind of went behind your back. If there were third-party situations that were involved, it feels like these things have come to an end, or this is kind of like the grass was not greener on the other side. They are discovering that what was glittering is not in fact gold, and that a choice that was made to be very careless or reckless with your heart, with the gift of this connection, it has cost them in a lot of ways. This feels that this is somebody who, like, their abundance is drying up in a lot of ways. Their mojo is drying up in a lot of ways because of a choice or a detour that was taken, a direction that was moved in, rather than capitalizing on the gift of this connection. They chose to almost descend rather than ascend, or to, kind of pick the descending path as far as their conduct. And there's a lot of focus on this at this point in time, sort of what went wrong, what their role in the situation was. For a lot of these people, they have a lot of time on their hands at this point in time due to opportunities that have sort of shut for them, things that are a bit outside of their reach, goals and dreams they may have been working toward that have become more difficult to attain, have kind of like slipped through their fingers in some manner, and it almost feels like a domino effect. So in a way, this could be karma for what how they behaved, how they treated you, how they treated the gift of this connection in the past, that kind of their actions. It feels like if that's the case, it's not just, oh, they're being made to suffer for how they were careless with your heart, but almost like this is the straw that broke the camel's back, that this may have been like a long-standing trend or pattern within their life, and it was kind of like enough is enough. The universe has called Judgment Day on them. In a sense, that idea of calling Judgment Day also came through in pile 1, as well as the Knight of Pentacles. He came through in group 1 as well. So if you felt inclined to watch that group as well, there might be additional kind of like messages or information for you there. You might want to do this after this one, but it's this idea of somebody who's just very much at a standstill right now, a lot of time on their hands to really think, to really reflect. They may be very stubborn right now, stubborn to admit that they are wrong. They may still be in this energy of kind of projecting, sort of like hurt people. This could be, you know, really catching up with them. They're no longer able to just sort of sail through in the same kind of energy that they were occupying with you previously, that sort of led to whatever your circumstances are with one another, that they're almost manifesting very quickly the yield of what they're putting out, and it's not tasting good. This is almost like a bitter pill to swallow for them, and it feels like something again where they're almost being put in time out by the universe at this point in time. There's a lot that might be surfacing for them, direct kind of mirroring of these same vibrations of what they put you through. The tables are now being turned on them. Almost this idea of being like haunted by memories as well, visions or these recollections, things that are triggered within them, that are kind of like bringing up the truth of what has happened between you, and kind of long-standing patterns of their conduct in their life in general that are being brought to their attention. They're being forced to look at their attention, to like come up with a new strategy. You know, if this is somebody who has really been into kind of like game playing, a very inauthentic person, a very sneaky person, a very shady person, a lot of masks and a lot of illusions. It's almost like those tricks aren't working anymore. They need to find a new way. They need to find a new method with this kind of the immature energy of the Six of Cups. They need to grow up, is what is really kind of the theme right here. And it feels like something that it almost feels like a very self-involved energy at this point in time, to where they're realizing what they had with you now that it's gone, but they can't hold it in any sort of other energy than kind of almost like a woe is me sort of energy. A lot of projection that might be happening at this point in time, still not really taking personal responsibility for the role that is happening, still approaching you know, the situation kind of childishly, needing to grow, needing to evolve in some manner. Again, the universe really having called Judgment Day on this person, kind of like, you're going to sit here in this situation until you figure this out. You're not going to be allowed to sort of like advance or move forward, you know, kind of watching opportunities pass you by until you fix this, until you figure this out, until you come up with a new strategy, some new coping mechanisms. This can even tie into, you know, this doesn't need to be somebody who's totally nefarious and that was why they were, you know, sneaky and shady. It's again the idea of hurt people hurt people. So some kind of wounding, some kind of pattern within them, you know, maybe something where they didn't feel their emotional needs were met as a child. And so, you know, coming into close proximity with deep emotional connections stirs up a lot of fear within them, a fear of rejection, you know, a fear of something being taken away in some manner, just whatever that might look like for them, that they're almost, their attention is just being directed back to this, some kind of core aspect or element within themselves where they're needing to go within and heal, they're needing to go within and nurture, that it's not the same tactic, it's not working anymore, that they can't, it's almost this awareness they can't continue to move through the world in the same, holding on and clinging to the same kind of wounds and grievances, making others kind of pay for the mistakes of maybe even some early heartbreak, some early disappointment. The idea of somebody who in their past was betrayed or cheated on, and then they become that betrayer, they become that cheater. It's that kind of an energy right here. So this feels like some harsh energy, some kind of like harsh lessons that they are needing to learn at this point in time. This fortune cookie is really speaking about like divine, like fate, divine intervention in this circumstance. Again, this idea of like karma really coming full circle for them at this point in time. In a sense, to balance the scales, but also as like this tough love, like a motivator on the part of the universe to change, to really you know, heal and release some things within themselves, so that, you know, regardless of kind of what they choose to do in this situation, or even what's possible, this may be something that was so you know, such kind of grievous energy, something where there's such deep hurts that, you know, maybe friendship between you is possible in the future. It may not be, you know, trust may be very difficult to reestablish, but there's a sense of they can't keep moving through the world like this. And it feels like it's coming almost from a place of compassion from the divine, you know, not like trying to scold, like you can't keep moving through the world hurting people like this, but almost the divine trying to embrace this person, trying to embrace your twin flame and saying, you don't need to move through the world like this. You don't need to move through the world holding on to all this pain and sorrow inside any longer, and kind of closing in the walls around your twin flame until they come to the understanding that they have the power in their hands to release that at any time, to choose a new direction, to choose a new path. So it's an act of tough love, but it's coming from a very compassionate place from the divine. This can also tie in with the Seven of Swords, that they are watching you from afar. They may be almost like strategizing, coming back towards you in some manner. If you have moved on from this person, from this connection, if you're, you know, starting to talk to somebody else, you've, you know, healed, you've tried to release the heartbreak, you're trying to turn a new leaf in your life. It feels like your twin may be very aware of a particular person or a particular circumstance that you are now starting to cultivate or entertain, this very kind of you know, almost like a fresh start energy, something you've tried to create for yourself, and they may be directing a lot of kind of like toxicity or negativity towards that, for some even trying to find ways to thwart that in a variety of manner, whether that is successful or not. It's kind of different for everybody's story, but this feels like somebody who's still sitting on they're sitting and holding on to a lot of deep-seated kind of anguish. This is somebody who's in a very toxic energy right now. They are needing to heal, but they're still kind of, what they're putting out is a very hurtful energy. So again, where they could really be, you know, spying, they're not necessarily able or ready or willing to give you something healthy and reciprocal, but yet it's almost like they don't want your attentions on anyone else. They want you to want them. They want you to be fixated on them. They want you to sit there in that misery, in that kind of pain where they left you. They almost are like not liking that you are creating stability in other ways for yourself, that you're you know, trying to open your heart to love again, that you're trying to pick up the pieces, that you're trying to move forward as best you can in this circumstance. So they could definitely be, you know, kind of observing, watching from afar, planning some way to kind of come back in. It might be in sort of like a sneaky energy, coming up with some kind of an excuse, you know, coming in a little bit manipulative to try and work on some reconciliation, you know, bring forth almost like a surface level apology in some manner, again, just because they're able to observe, or even just energetically they're sensing that you have detached, or you're detaching in some way. You may be closing the door, you may have cut a lot of these energetic cords, you've set your sights elsewhere, you know, you're moving forth to accept and open up to, you know, a different kind of love, a higher level love. You've really surrendered the circumstance over to divine timing, to the divine. You maybe have held on to hope of this person changing for quite some time. Change hasn't come, and so you've released the situation. This has clued them in. They are, if they are not watching this in the material world, which again, for a lot of them, they're definitely spying, seeing this from afar in whatever way that resonates, whether it's online, whether they're, you know, in your material world, hearing about it through other people, having other people sort of spy or find information for them to kind of bring back, almost like flying monkeys kind of energy there. you know, or it's something where energetically they're sensing that shift. They're feeling you in a different way. You don't feel, you don't resonate with that kind of heavy sorrow that they almost put you in, or that they, you know, were accustomed to having you in. Your glow up in some manner, your healing, your kind of, you know, willingness to sort of work on your own kind of wounding and patterns. It's triggering a response in your twin. But it feels to be something that it's not coming from a very positive place. It's not coming from a place of encouragement. For a lot of you, it feels like they have a lot of work they need to do within themselves first and foremost before they can bring something measurable to you by way of restoration. That at this point in time, kind of anything they would bring forth, it's a lot of just this immature kind of energy here, this unhealed energy, like child's play is sort of what's going on here with the Six of Cups. So it feels to be someone that, you know, they're hurting. They're in a lot of hurt. They're in a lot of anguish at this point in time. It's definitely, you know, the embodiment of hurt people. And it's something where there's kind of, again, Judgment Day. There's like a reckoning that's happening where, you know, they're not as successful in this kind of, mode of operating as they have been up to this point in time. And this may be very frustrating for them. They may be almost like looking for people to blame, projecting that blame out, kind of just very weepy about this, very like sorrowful, but not necessarily proactive to take any sort of steps yet. But we'll see what else comes through as far as some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they are faced with regarding the connection or just in their life in general at this point in time. Okay, so we have voyage, standstill, and simplicity. So with this voyage card here, and it's a whale flying above the ocean, kind of like holding on to this little calf, this little baby whale. This definitely is talking about a lot of emotional avoidance at this point in time, refusing to kind of like dive deeply within, refusing to sort of clean up their side of the street at this point in time. This can tie into inner child wounds, like with that Six of Cups, some kind of pattern of behavior stemming from past disappointments in love or things that were demonstrated to them growing up. This can also talk about like old grievances, a lot of like blame, a lot of feeling very almost sorry for themselves, kind of playing a victim in a circumstance rather than being kind of proactive in a sense of, you know, creating a different kind of future for themselves. This is a major obstacle for them at this point in time, kind of just carrying these things on with them into the future, operating a lot in this kind of like thought energy, this mental energy. This can be like racing thoughts, impulsivity, reactionary sort of energy, kind of the idea of voyage, leaping to, you know, conclusions, being very like short-tempered in a certain way, being very closed off in the emotional body and the heart chakra. And it feels like a lot of that is very sort of fear-based with this water. This is kind of like dark water. This is murky water. This is a lot of shadow work that the divine is really kind of calling them home to. That, you know, they're almost like making things more difficult on themselves than it needs to be at this point in time. And kind of the source of their liberation, it's found in the places they are most afraid to look. It is found in that emotional body, and yet they're very detached from that. This can speak to somebody that had a very kind of difficult experience growing up where they've become very emotionally detached, and that this is like deep and long-term wounding. This isn't just a simple fix of I surrender, and then there they are. This may be somebody that needs like therapy, for example, talk therapy. You know, they got to unlearn a whole different kind of like pattern or survival mechanism. This feels like somebody who's been in survival mode for quite some time, and they have a hard time trusting even. So again, not somebody who's deeply nefarious, although their behavior and actions may kind of make you think otherwise. This is somebody who's deeply wounded and who is very afraid. You know, inside, they're very afraid of that wounded part of themselves. They're afraid of letting go of that wounding as well, because it's all they've come to know up to this point in time. It's how they've identified themselves, and it's a struggle. It's just kind of all these things that they've been carrying through the years, through their lifetime, kind of this accumulation of, you know, the wrongs that were done to them, the things that didn't work out in their life, and kind of all of this sort of like surface level or, you know, just almost like superficial things that they are focusing on as a way to avoid kind of that source of healing work that they need to do within themselves. This idea of standstill can also talk about like these roadblocks, doors that are closing for them, you know, kind of a way in which they had just been moving through the world, just accumulating all of this kind of like wounding and kind of inflicting that out on other people very unknowingly. It feels that they're very oblivious to that concept of hurt people hurt people. If they're familiar with that phrase, they may not fully understand that because they're so like emotionally avoidant in a certain manner that it doesn't have true meaning. They almost are that almost feels like somebody who would project that idea out onto other people and would not understand the ways in which they themselves are kind of like falling into that pattern because they don't necessarily understand what that means. They have not addressed some of this hurt within. It's just almost calcified within them. It's at a standstill. They're still operating from this kind of like wounded child energy right here. You know, and this idea of simplicity, it's really just speaking to resistance, not going with the flow, you know, not kind of surrendering to the process, still trying to be very much in control of the situation, still trying to cling to, you know, this wounding and this hurt, this pain that they have carried. There's a fear almost of the ease and the flow between the two of you when things were good, before things went bad, before things went sour, before this person's wounds or, you know, kind of tendencies towards self-sabotage sort of reared their ugly head and compromised the connection in some manner, that there's a fear of peacefulness. As odd as that might sound, that the peaceful vibration, the harmony between the two of you is very deeply triggering for this individual, because there's a wounded part of themselves that almost doesn't feel worthy of that. So this feels to be very complex wounding, a lot that they are, you know, needing to really like sift through. This, again, this standstill, it's just, you know, this almost looks very much like rock or stone, like these layers of sediment, things that are just deeply ingrained, generational patterns, like generation after generation, the same story has played out where your twin flame is a link in another chain. And they have this opportunity by virtue of meeting you. You know, every generation, every person has that opportunity to sort of take the hand that they've been dealt and play that in a different manner, use that as best as they can, and to do something different from what has kind of been templated before. It's not our fault kind of what happens to us, but it is our responsibility how we handle that, how we deal with that, how we come to terms with that and grow beyond that. And it almost feels like something where it's just like, it's this stubbornness. It feels almost like too difficult to change. It's too deeply ingrained to change. It's just the way it is. It's just the way everyone has been. And it's almost like not recognizing, like this bird here is blending into this background to where, again, it's kind of like with this whale flying above the water. It's just this, it's oblivious kind of energy. Like they're not looking. They're not recognizing kind of how the circumstances they find themselves in, how, you know, maybe these closed doors for themselves, how this is the product of a certain kind of action on their part, a certain sort of tendency on their part. They're largely unaware of the nature of these wounds and very terrified with the idea of kind of chiseling away at that, because it's all they've ever known. It's all they've ever been shown. It's like the identity that they have come to live by, that they have just assumed that's the way it is. This is someone who may just, have ideas like everything they touch, is ruined. They only kind of mess up romantic situations, any kind of like distortions that were projected upon them, any sort of self-esteem issues they have. A lot of this could have been the product of their environments growing up. Some kind of deep rejection in terms of romance, or even socially, or again like in their maybe a dynamic with their mother, like a mother-child dynamic, some kind of parental figure. They've taken that very personally. This feels to actually be a very deeply emotional person who's just been operating for a large chunk of their life in a very wounded stance as a coping mechanism, as a survival mechanism. They've had to just harden their heart. They've had to close that off, and it feels like to the point where they weren't then able to decipher what is safe to let in, and so they just have kind of walled everything off. They're just so detached. They never checked back in with themselves, and so kind of that being the major sort of struggle or challenge that they are facing at this point in time, that the divine is again calling Judgment Day, almost like stripping things away from their life so that they, opportunities and just this ability to kind of move through the world in this blissful ignorance of kind of their responsibility, their role, and the necessity to kind of be proactive in their own healing and personal transformation. That there's a lot of resistance to that, a lot of fear as far as where to begin, a lot of sense of unknowing, feeling very ill-equipped, like they're, the idea of chiseling away at rock and all you have in your hand is a feather, like they don't have the tools to do that in a certain manner, and so these tools are not totally outside of the realm of their ability to access them. These are grown adults here. They have the ability to find things. It feels like the divine is kind of putting things in their path, conversations they overhear from people in their lives that may be involved in some process of kind of picking up the pieces, things that algorithms suggest, things that come through on social media. It's like the roadmap is there, the signs, the road signs, the billboards keep showing them, exit here, try this, do this, and they just are staying very stuck, very stubborn, very ingrained, and just kind of a defeatist attitude. This is just the way it's always been. It's just how I am. I can't change. And for a lot of them, it feels like they're almost saying, I don't want to change. And that being even more of a layer of a mask to sort of hide this deep pain that is just they're avoiding at this point in time. So I'm going to take a look at their potential actions towards you. Okay, so we have envy, yin yang in the reverse, and 5th chakra, Archangel Gabriel. So this envy card is really similar to this imagery here in the 7 of Swords, kind of just like watching from afar, watching from the shadows. So it feels to be more of that, a lot of kind of like negativity, jealousy directed towards you, and ways in which you're healing, you're moving beyond. It's almost like, as difficult as your road to healing has been, as difficult as the process of coming to peace and acceptance with the situation and moving on, as difficult as that may have been, they envy you that. They don't understand or are not recognizing that, that healing, that creating that light in the darkness, it is possible for them too, but it's an inside job. It feels that for the immediate future, and this is again, not forever and ever kind of energies, but for the context of this reading, their actions towards you, you can look at that in terms of like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months at the outside here, kind of like with this yin yang full circle. So, in the next 365 days, this is most likely the energies. This is what they are sitting in. Beyond that point, change can happen. The energies can shift within that context. You know, the energies can shift. This is just kind of in the foreseeable future, in the immediate future. It feels that they continue to just sort of sit in the shadow, to, you know, look everywhere else except for at what they need to do to fix and change the situation within them first and foremost, in order to be able to bring something more positive, more constructive to this situation with you and to other situations in their life in general. Yin Yang in the reverse speaks to imbalance. It speaks to not taking the high road, not bringing forth the apology, not bringing forth the change, resistance to change, fear of change in a lot of ways. If there is communication, again, for a lot of you, there may be communication. It almost feels to be stemming back to that kind of, that narrative for some of you of ways in which you've tried to sort of move forth with your life. You know, maybe you're seeing other people, you're starting to talk to other people, you're putting yourself out there in some way more, you know, you're picking up the pieces, you're trying to heal and come to a place of acceptance with the situation. It's almost like reaching out to continue to keep themselves relevant in your life, wanting to kind of like bring themselves along on this path of healing, or to sort of pick vicariously off of the light that you are generating within yourself, kind of, you know, transmuting this pain into a source of power. Vicariously, they're wanting to live off of that. They're wanting to feed off of that. It's a little bit of like a vampiric energy right here, might be what they're bringing forth to you. Something meant to trigger you, something meant to incite jealousy. This can be things that they, you know, are posting online to try and get your attention, reaching out to you because they are, you know, seeing you detaching, feeling you detaching from them. You're changing, you're transmuting. And so that might be when they pop up out of nowhere. They're popping up out of the silence just to kind of put your attentions back onto them. It doesn't feel to be something that is coming from a place of balance. It feels to be something that still might be very low vibrational. So this can be a test for your discernment. It can be very informative for you as you are leaning more deeply into that sense of discernment. Kind of like your life gets better, they all of a sudden pop back in. Like a hanger-oner kind of just, again, trying to keep themselves relevant or current, or, you know, prevent you in some way from detaching from them, from moving on in the situation. It's like misery loves company. Like they want you there in that darkness. They're very triggered by your change. They're very triggered by your kind of personal growth in some manner, because it's something that in their present energy and in the near future, they don't see how that's possible. They're like, again, that idea of hurt people, that phrase, it could not ring any bells for them. It could not resonate with them. They don't understand it. They don't get it because they haven't addressed that pain deep within themselves. They've just kind of glossed over it. It's just almost, it's just set in stone. It's just something that they avoid. They just continue to move forward without a lot of self-reflection up to this point and kind of in the immediate future. So this can almost be just sort of a, you know, a clue, a little bit of kind of that higher perspective here, that what they're bringing forth to you. It may on the surface seem like, oh great, they're reaching out. I've done the work on myself. Now my twin's coming back home to me, that it's worked. We've kind of, it's rippled out to them, but it may be something that it's very short-lived. It's very kind of surface level. Again, it's quickly evidenced that they haven't done that work within themselves. They are not able to kind of like dive deeply with you, that it's still a bit imbalanced. It may even come very low vibrationally, which would be obvious imbalance. And this can be something that just kind of further provides you with confirmation to continue forth on your path of healing and growth despite this situation. You know, allow the divine to work with your twin. They have a lot of work they need to do within themselves in order to bring back something to you that is more in alignment with kind of what you're needing and what you're wanting from them. This is kind of the energy of like not never but not now. Feels to be sort of the immediate future of where they are, what they're capable of bringing forth. They have to kind of start at square one, and they're almost just kind of looking outside, kind of like, will you do the work for me? You've done it. Can I just kind of sap off of some of this light? And that only goes so far. They're not able to sustain that vibration. So it may be kind of like they pop back in and they're popping back out. So if you've been in a runner chaser cycle, there may be another one of those on the horizon, or maybe, you're at a point where they're coming towards you again, or, maybe surfacing back for the first time. And you're trusting your discernment, you're trusting your kind of inner compass and your inner guidance. And, maybe you're declining that offer. You're responding to them in a different way than you had in the past. That can be something which it's a wall that causes them. That's kind of like the final wall shut in around them, where then they have to go within. It is possible that is the mechanism for change. But it really does feel that it might be something that it's some kind of a communication, something that they put out there to try and get a reaction, to get your goat in some way, or to, again, sort of like make sure that your focus is on them to try and resurface. It may come in kind of this immature sort of state, or it has a lot of the indications. They have a lot of the indications that they still need to heal, that they are still operating in distortion, in imbalanced energy. So it can kind of be the clue, the confirmation for you, what you sort of need to hear or witness or experience in order to kind of make the decision of where you're going to hold this connection, how you're going to hold it emotionally, hope that you're holding, or sort of what your priorities or goals or focus is moving forward based on kind of where your twin is at in sort of the more immediate future. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self, and then I'll close it out with some guidance and initials. So what do they want to tell you? Okay, so there were actually a lot that came out, but group 2 got 5, group 1 got 4, so I'll just take these 5 and we'll go with that. Okay, so they say, I've looked you up online to see what you've been up to. So that's that confirmation of that 7 of Swords energy, somebody who's lurking, spying, checking you out, asking people about you, a little bit of that flying monkey energy right there. Something about your glow up, your shift has really clued them in. They're sensing it, they're feeling it, they're recognizing it, and it feels to be very triggering to them. It's very confusing. It's something where they don't know how you are accomplishing this, how you're doing this, wanting to almost fast track to that point of vibration or light, but kind of not understanding, failing to recognize that it's an inside job to get there. And they also say, if I knew then what I know now, I would have made different choices. So there is a bit of regret that their actions or their conduct has put the two of you at a distance from one another. As much as they are operating in the energy of distortion, you do represent a light for them. You have been a very vibrant presence in their life. You have been a supportive presence in their life. You maybe gave them a lot more leeway. You showed them a lot more love than they were accustomed to up to this point in time, or that they had ever really experienced. And it has made an impression upon them. You definitely have opened some kind of door within them. Even if they have not really done this healing work, they've kind of been avoiding it up to this point in time. You have made an impact. Who you are as a person, the intersection of your lives with one another in this incarnation. Everybody has kind of free will to sort of take that journey into the places they are most afraid to go, or to continue to move forth in the status quo and kind of with the limited actualization of potential. And it feels like something where they're almost, again, kind of like a pity party energy here. Like, I wish I'd made different choices. It's too late now. It's set in stone. It's just the way that I am. It's just kind of reinforcing that narrative for themselves. But they're wishing they could be more like you, could find some kind of like key to enlightenment as you have found, wishing that their life was feeling and looking as good as they are perceiving that your life is at this point in time, but in some way very disconnected or not understanding the struggle that it took for you to reach this place. They also say you are an angel. So again, they're seeing you as a light, that is a contrast to the darkness that they hold within. There's a sense of them feeling very lonely within and kind of wanting you to sit there with them in the darkness. In a way, they may be, begrudging you a bit as far as your personal growth and ascension. Wanting to kind of pull you back down to their level, or just kind of wishing that they could be there with you in that kind of height of vibration that you are at, but still not kind of looking at the steps necessary to kind of get there, to reach that. It's a sense of, looking at the contrast between the two of you. You're the light and they're the darkness, is kind of how they're holding this energy at this point in time. And they also say, I know you're right, but I need to come to my own conclusions. So you may have really spoken some truth to your twin about things that they needed to change, kind of some sorrow, misery, ways in which they are getting in their own way. You may have encouraged them toward release. You may have provided them with information as far as strategies, self-help, things that have worked for you that they just kind of, were a naysayer about. They just kind of refused that. They were just, very kind of stubborn about that. And, from their higher self, they're letting you know that your words are truly wise. As much as they are kind of like looking, and there's some envy and there's some jealousy, there's also this curiosity about what's your secret ingredient? What's this recipe for success? How do you manage to, kind of pick up the pieces after everything you've been through, after everything that, your twin has put you through? They're kind of like, how are you doing this? How are you not just crumbled in misery like I am? How are you managing to smile and still kind of create opportunities for yourself, despite the fact that, this experience has been very difficult to sort of work through in some level? And so with this idea of them watching you from afar and being jealous, they're also trying to kind of take notes. They're trying to sort of pick up some kind of secret scent about what might be a key to unlocking for them the road to happiness in the same way in which you have found it. But it feels to be something where, they need to come to their own conclusions. They're still in a bit of denial and stubbornness. So it feels like the universe definitely is closing in the walls around them so that they have time to really go in, to no longer run, to no longer distract themselves, but to just sort of sit with themselves and think. They also say no other compares to you. So this feels like nobody else triggers them and inspires them as much as you do. That this may be the fact that they're almost in a way like fixated upon you, very sort of like seeking out what you're doing, sensing these changes within you, and kind of they can't detach. That's another thing that almost like really, it makes them curious. How have you detached from this situation? How have you been able to move on? This may be somebody that holds a lot of grudges, holds a lot of resentment, ways in which you freed yourself from maybe that tendency within you, from experiences of the past. They see you as somebody very successful in your life. Whether you recognize yourself as that or not, that is how they see you. And so they are on some level very cognizant of the value which was lost. They're seeing what they had now that it is gone. But they feel to not necessarily be at that point of personal growth and development where they are ready, willing, and able to make the changes necessary to create growth in this situation. Again, not now, but not never. Change can definitely happen, but they still feel to be very much projecting outward, looking outward, kind of doing everything they can to avoid the obvious route within, where the answers lie within. So it's kind of like, what's your secret? How do you do it? Can I kind of come along for the ride? Can I, get a little bit of what you have, and maybe that will, bring me up to that level. So it's part of their journey. It's part of the chapter and the stage that they are at this point in time. of really just kind of seeking outwardly, and the divine will continue to work with them and kind of give that call, coax them inside, close those walls in even tighter to where they're almost forced to go within, to look within, to heal and grow and evolve. So I'm going to get one of these romance angels for some guidance. Okay, 2 of them came out, so I will take both of them. We have deception. Someone is wearing a false self mask in this relationship. And love yourself first. Your self-respect makes you more romantically attractive. So this again really speaks to, hurt people. As dirty as this person's actions towards you might have been, as nefarious of a character as they may present themselves to be or they may represent in your life, this is actually somebody who is, deeply wounded within. And this doesn't excuse their conduct. It doesn't excuse their behavior. But this is just really serving as kind of some perspective for you that, what you've experienced with this individual, it is not a reflection of a deficit within you, that kind of their conduct towards you is a reflection of that deficit within them. If they are operating in a lot of pride and ego, again, that can be kind of this avoidance of a lot of deep emotional wounds within. They need to kind of go within in order to be able to take that mask off and be genuine and authentic with you. That's not possible fully or in a long-term sustainable sense until they learn to love themselves. Maybe they projected this onto you. Maybe these literal words, you need to love yourself first. That being a projection of almost what they know they need to do within. They have not been loving themselves. And so it's easier to just kind of project and blame out. Everyone else is the problem, when instead it's that wounded aspect of them that is crying out from the inside. So this can definitely be, just some confirmation for you to continue on your path of kind of growth, healing, taking down the walls and any kind of distortion that has been built up around you as far as, your interactions, your dealings with your twin flame, what has been triggered, other kind of romantic connections from your past, things from your childhood, all these wounds and prohibitions that you have built up, walls you have built up within yourself that have made you feel less than worthy and deserving of healthy and reciprocal love. Keep doing your shadow work. Keep doing your personal growth. Keep doing your personal healing. Keep loving yourself despite everything that you've been, despite everything you've been through, in the interest of everything you shall become. And trust that if this person, if your twin flame chooses to do the work, chooses to change, maybe it's possible for the 2 of you to experience something different with one another in the future. If this reading maybe just served as, because this is very like heavy energies here, out of all the groups, this is definitely the most kind of unhealed energy right here. So this might just be confirmation for you that your choice to detach from this person and move forth, that is really in the interest of your highest good. They need to the divine needs to sort of have its way with this person. If they're not getting it, if they're not doing the work, you can only go so far on a journey with a person like that. And it may kind of be the task to learn to love them from afar, to love yourself so much that you put up the healthy boundary and barrier. You not put your life on hold. You not subject yourself, to somebody who is just kind of walking with a lot of distortions and projecting those outward and not kind of taking those steps that may be long overdue to heal. So continuing to do what sort of, feels good, feels high vibrational for you, as much as it may feel very confusing that you're still attached, this person may be popping in and out of your life, coming in when things are going really well, getting your hopes up, kind of then things sort of fizzle out or it plateaus, or there's clearly some deception, some kind of nefarious energy going on, or just some trickery or shadiness, or they're just not they're not being their genuine self. You know, don't let that distract you or derail you from your path of healing. You know, keep growing, keep pressing forth. You know, keep trusting that your light will be an example to others. Some people will be triggered and they will just sort of lean back into their shadow. They'll project, they'll try and stifle that light. There are others who will gravitate toward that and who will use your example as a source for healing for themselves. It's possible that your twin flame may be one of those people that gravitates towards you in time and starts to do the work within themselves so the two of you can heal the connection. It is also possible that perhaps, you know, in another lifetime, your story may turn out differently with one another. The most important thing is you learn to love yourself. You make the most of this opportunity that this twin flame connection has provided. Deep personal growth and ascension for two individuals, regardless of what your twin chooses to do. You choose you, and that is fulfilling the contract that each of you have had with one another for this lifetime. So this is encouragement for you to keep pressing forward, keep pulling off those masks and barriers that separate you from the understanding that you are completely and absolutely worthy of healthy and reciprocal love, just as you are in this moment. Keep growing. And in the time and manner that you are meant to align with a heart that is able to recognize that, to receive and reciprocate with you. Maybe that's somebody you've already encountered now. Maybe that's somebody further down the road. Maybe that's your twin further down the road. Whatever that storyline looks like for you, trust that in the time and manner it is meant to be received and recognized and known by you, that it will be. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got V, J, Z, O, A, X, D, H, P, and W. So those are your messages, group 3. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.